I'm Aaron Maté, sitting in for Jimmy, and joining me now is Seymour Hersh. He is one of the most accomplished and impactful journalists of all time, won every award in the business, including the Pulitzer, now writing at seymourhersh.substack.com, where he recently wrote this piece called Trading with the Enemy. Amid rampant corruption in Kiev and as U.S. troops gather at the Ukrainian border, does the Biden administration have an end game to the conflict? So let's bring in Seymour Hersh now. Cy Hersh, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be there.
So talk to us about this story. You reported a lot here, including that Zelensky and his entourage are skimming tens of millions of dollars in U.S. funding. Talk to us about this.
Well, sure. God knows how much money they're stealing. I mean, I think 10 to millions is nickel dime stuff, really. You know, you got $130–40 billion of American aid going in there. But what I was writing about was the discovery in which nobody is challenged. You know, I know the government, the government and its newspapers don't like to respond to some of the stuff I write, but I was surprised they let this one sit. Well, I was just writing about a meeting that took place in January. I think it was late January. When the CIA chief, Bill Burns, who is doing okay, but he's a State Department guy. You know, this is the last place you'd expect him to be. I think he wanted to be Secretary of State, but he fell short, whatever it is. He visited Zelensky. There was a group there. He wasn't alone. And the meeting was rather astonishing. The point of the meeting was to tell Zelensky that he's got a lot of very angry generals and angry senior officials in the government because he's taking too much of the skim. He's taking too big of a percentage. As I said, it was like a mafia meeting. You know, hey boss, lay off the skim. You know, they're gonna take you out. And what the only discernible fact, the estimate that I was told, well, of course, the real problem is that Zelensky has been buying diesel fuel, which is Ukraine has some natural gas and fuel, but not enough to do much with. I mean, they certainly have to import a lot. And for the war, they need diesel fuel, which is a very, as you know, it's distilled. And I don't know if there's any refineries that have been left there by, you know, Russians have been hitting a lot of the important sites, including refineries, et cetera, and a lot of choke points. And so he's been buying his diesel from Russia, which I meant by trading with the enemy. It's not that unusual. During the Chechen Wars, I was told the Chechens also bought their fuel when they were blowing up buildings in downtown, Moscow. Yeah. So allegedly, and so God knows how much money he was spending in the last year and 2 or 3 months of the war, but certainly the estimate I heard was $400 billion. That was on the table, and he responded. We gave him a list of the CIA. I don't know whether Burns did or whether it was done I don't know how they did it. But a list of 35 names was given to him of people that we knew were on the take. And he got rid of 10 of them, but they turned out to be the most ostentatious. I don't know why there hasn't been more reporting about what I'm going to tell you now, but Kiev, large parts of Kiev are a luxury heaven.
Yep.
You know, great restaurants, incredible stores. It's like being on the Riviera or something like that, or Fifth Avenue. It's really full of high-end stores. I just read the other day, somebody said he checked in one of the places, a liquor store that was selling a bottle of, which isn't the drink of choice there, for $600. You know, that kind of high-end stuff. So and there are a lot of big-time grifters there. And the people he named were 10 of the most, as I said, ostentatious. The others just went on. But the extent of corruption, that $400 million was just about the skim off the diesel oil going back and forth. You have to understand, our position now in Kiev is we're the federal government here at a time we're cutting back Medicaid and other programs for the poor and et cetera, et cetera. We're paying Social Security there for the Ukrainians.
What?
Really? I don't know what's so funny about it. It scares the hell out of me. I mean,
That's crazy.
totally crazy. Well, it's not crazy. It's just, that's what we're doing. As you and I have talked about many times, Aaron, the reporting on this has been pretty shameful because I thought the last wave of all excited newspaper articles about this stuff that a reserve unit in the Air Force got, some of it marked top secret. Let me assure you that yes, top secret stuff does get into an Air Force reserve unit in Massachusetts, but not the good stuff.
Right.
That's all low hanging fruit. I mean, you can do. And he was actually, I'm told he was actually writing text himself. In other words, passing that off as reports. He was actually putting together essays. It's a very strange story, way overplayed because it didn't. If you really look at it hard, it didn't move the needle. There was some talk of casualty damage, of numbers of casualty that people took seriously, but I know people who didn't take it seriously, and there are people who see other stuff. Anyway, the bottom line is, I don't think there's any chance in hell there's going to be an offensive by the Russians. They don't need one, and they're in a lockdown right now. They're getting what they want, and he doesn't need to destroy more of the country. And I would think, I'm hearing a lot of talk about external conversations taking place, but the only real important one is going to be the one between Biden or Biden's people, probably Biden and Zelensky, but we're not having that talk yet.
There are some.
He's the president that's put his re-election now onto the back of Zelensky, which is so crazy, just so nuts. But anyway, there we go. I'm sorry.
Well, no, hey, there are some indications, though, that the Biden administration is preparing to back off from this Ukraine proxy war. First of all, you had in some of those Pentagon leaks some disclosures that what we've been told publicly about what the Pentagon says, that Ukraine has the strong chance of success in the spring counteroffensive, is they privately recognize that that's not true, where they say that the best Ukraine can do is just basically a prolonged stalemate, the status quo. That was one revelation from the Pentagon leaks. And now we're seeing headlines like this. Let me show it to you from Politico. This is the latest. It says Biden's team fears the aftermath of a failed Ukrainian counteroffensive. And here's the New York Times. Ukraine's spring offensive comes with immense stakes for the future of the war. So I'm wondering, seeing these leaks come out, which come from the White House, could this be an indication that the Biden administration is preparing to back off a little bit if things don't go well for Ukraine in the coming weeks and months?
Well, they're not going to go well. And so look, certainly the obviously is the obvious thing that, well, the papers know where they come from. If that's the impression they're leaving, I've read the stories, and I know people that have thought that many months ago about this offensive, so you don't hear it from the president yet, and so I actually, when I did Nord Stream, one of the things about Nord Stream is the complete isolation of the group doing the mission in Norway from the White House. I mean, they all the president. I do think he's probably a lot more isolated than we think. There's a lot of worry that he's not reading all the intelligence, and he's not paying attention. There's been I can't remember the last time we've gone this long without a public National Intelligence Estimate, NIE. I mean, even in the Bush-Cheney days, they did when they were chasing all over Iran, and that was the big thing they wanted. But Cheney wanted to do, hit Iran. There were 2 NIEs that became public. I mean, I know I wrote about them from the New Yorker. 2 NIEs saying there's no bomb here, and so I just don't think they're interested, or the president is interested in getting an assessment. So I don't know. It could be, one of the, since we don't know, we're flying blind. It could be a concerted effort to push Biden. It could be something he's pushing, or I don't think he's going to give up the ghost that easily. And the question is, what will it take to get Zelensky to walk away? And I don't think anybody really knows the answers. There's a lot of people that would want to know the answer. I will just tell you without embellishment, there's an awful lot of countries surrounding Ukraine that have an awful lot of Ukrainians living there. And that's becoming a more and more sore point. That's not being reported. But that's a great incentive to get the war done, even by people who you would think have as much contempt. I don't know if anybody in the world has as much contempt for Russia as does Anthony Blinken and Jake Sullivan and Victoria Nuland. They seem to be the experts on contempt.
Yep.
Russia and China.
One other thing you've reported recently is the amount of weapons that are being pilfered from Ukraine and going into the black market. And this was reported on a few months ago in a CBS News documentary, which they then deleted after outrage from the Ukrainian government and the Pentagon. But you write that this is a major problem.
Well, it's been huge from the beginning. I mean, what do we know about Ukraine? It's one of always in the bottom of the list of corruption. And any guy that's ever done business in Ukraine, first thing you have to go there is start paying off everybody. It's corruption city. And I mean, to the point where the head of the CIA has to tell the president of the country, you're taking too much of the skim, fella. You can get in trouble. The generals may get you if you don't watch it. It was that kind of language. And I don't know why. It's just anathema to me that that we're in the position we are with the media. You and I have talked many times about what's going on. Your concern and my concern about Syria and the absolute lousy reporting there, but I don't think anything has matched the last year and a half of the reporting about the war. It's a shambles. And so, we were talking earlier about that YouTube did you send it to me? Somebody sent it to me. I don't know. It was my friend Jeff Gerth sent it to me. It's just, I worked at the New York Times for 7 or 8 years, and I just know what a good machine it was. I don't know. You can't begin to imagine what's going on.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Oh yeah. Do you know like how it compares? When I came in, you were talking about Kiev, like the kind of corruption there. How that compares to like Kabul and Afghanistan. Like, has this surpassed that amount, or is it not even close to it? Or
we had that wonderful what's his name? Sopa. You know who I'm talking about? The one who ran the investigations of the corruption in Afghanistan. What was his name? S with an S. He wrote reports for not AID reports. There was another agency in which he wrote reports of corruption. And I just there's nothing. We don't have any external monitoring of anything going on there. I mean, they just, you can't, because it would be too horrible. And so, you don't have it. But we in Afghanistan, we had numbers, we had percentages. And of course it was, we remember the scene of the president of the country flying out in a chopper with $100 bills. You remember that?
Yeah.
Left. Our great leader, the one that had been praised, he'd come to America and been taken seriously, Gandhi. And anyway, it's, there's been quite nothing like the last 20 years of American foreign policy for self-destruction. It's just amazing. And now we're back into it. Even, we're, I think the intelligence community, what they really wanted to do is do a good study of what would happen if China decided to do something in Taiwan. And I don't think they were able to do it. I don't think that they may have put together something, but my thought about that always is just very simple. Nobody makes the kind of chips Taiwan does. They've managed to, they have a special way of doing it. I don't know how they've gotten so successful. The Chinese need them as badly as we do, the chips. So I don't think that's on the table, despite how much we seem to want to push it.
Yeah, there was just a war game by members of Congress trying to game out how this would happen. I don't know why members of Congress are doing that, not the Pentagon, but I guess yeah.
It's become if Nancy Pelosi went there, well, we got to go too.
Yeah,
yeah. That it's a war game in terms of Democrat and Republican, even though they're both on the same side. Just talk about fecklessness. Let's see, what are the chances that Chuck Schumer, with his slight majority in the Senate, is going to authorize some committee to do an outside investigation into the Nord Stream pipeline. What are the chances? Like zero. What are the chances? I mean, it's just, where are they? What are they doing? There's, he has done some, Biden, to his credit, has had some domestic legislation passed. He's paid, and he's been blackmailed a little bit by fellow Republican Democrats. But he's gotten some stuff done that's very useful. But now we're cutting back on the, right now the budget cutbacks are all coming at the bottom of the pit. They're all coming at, they're all coming at the least likely group that needs to be cut back, the aid for them. So we're now just doing the same old thing we always did, leaving people to straggle on their own for medical care. Why we don't have single payers? Just, I don't know. What planet am I from talking this way?
Maybe they'll get single payer in Ukraine first, and then we can follow. We'll pay for it first.
Better not get single payer first.
You would have to pay to get into the hospital. If you had single payer, you'd have to pay to get in.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. It's actually unbelievable that we put as much money as we have, and I think Europe's ready to bolt. I don't think they're going to hang around too much. I don't think it's going to get the support. We almost had. I think we do have some German tanks in fighting in combat against Russia for the first time since since World War II.
Yeah,
and we were training F-16 pilots. The problem about the F-16 is it's a very old plane, and the Russian anti-aircraft stuff is so good. It's not that they were backing off because we're not going to have the F-16 put in. It's that they wouldn't be able to exist long. And we've been training a bunch of pilots. I don't know where, somewhere in the West, I guess. Usually in Utah is where they go to some place, or Nevada. They have a big area, sealed off area, where some of the World War II nuke stuff was going on. But that's not a starter, and the more advanced planes can't make it because they're not able to fly them, and we don't want to give it to them anyway. And it's no fun because it's so easy to be critical.
Yep.
There used to be a reason sometimes to be critical. Now there's just no fun anymore.
We're telling jokes in Nashville, Honolulu, Los Angeles, Northampton, Massachusetts, Syracuse, Cohoes, New York, Hartford, Connecticut, Baltimore, Chicago, Rosemont, San Diego, and more. Go to jimmydore.com to get a link for all those tickets. Plus, you can watch my new special, COVID Lies Are Funny.